Listen, guys, we've all been so focused on the big game this past weekend that maybe some of us forgot it's Valentine's Day. Here's a little pro tip. Give the gift your loved one will truly be happy with this Valentine's Day. The giftbar.com universal gift card. It's good at thousands of participating merchants around the country. And by the way, this is a way to support local business owners by giving the giftbar.com universal gift card. Whether they pick a local merchant or maybe they decide to use it while traveling to their favorite city, it's easy for that special person in your life to find the perfect place to enjoy this thoughtful gift from you. You can get pampered at hundreds of salons or spas, maybe go on a shopping trip at an antique clothing store, or even have some fun at an escape room. No gift is as versatile, personal, and guaranteed to please like the giftbar.com universal gift card. Guys, seriously, here's the deal. If you're looking for the perfect last-minute gift for your sweetie, we got you covered, and it doesn't get any better than this. Go to giftbar.com and give the giftbar.com universal gift card. It only takes seconds. It's good at thousands of merchants around the country, meaning they can get what they really want. She can use it at salons or spas or shopping or food or entertainment. They've even curated top local merchants, so your loved one is guaranteed a great experience. You can even include a photo or a video and then send her the gift to her phone via text. Watch her smile from ear to ear. Save some time and make her happy. It's giftbar.com. And right now, if you use the promo code Conrad, you'll get 15% off your entire purchase. That's code Conrad to save 15% off and get a perfect last-minute Valentine's Day gift from giftbar.com.
Hey guys, it's the hardcore legend Mick Foley here, and I need to call a quick timeout, a brief timeout, because I wanted to tell your listeners what I have been telling Foley is Pod listeners for a while now about all the cool things happening over on adfreeshows.com.
Ad-Free Shows gives you early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts, including The Snake Pit with Jake Roberts. This week, The Snake welcomed the devil himself, Kevin Sullivan, to the program.
I'm ready to go out, and I see Ming coming back, and all of a sudden, they threw a cinder block and hit him on the shoulder from the roof. He dropped to a knee, but he just shook it off and came in. If they had hit him in the head, it would have killed him.
David Crockett joins Conrad for an all-new edition of The Book, as they go day by day through February 1985 with the help of Jim Crockett's original booking logs. And what a pivotal month it was, as WrestleMania 1 is right around the corner and Jim Crockett Promotions is running in Vince's own backyard.
In that area, knew him, knew his reputation. It's a working class audience. They like the style of our wrestling, and you put Dusty and Backlund together. They're, opposites, but they attract, and they make it work.
This month marks the 35-year anniversary of one of the most memorable angles in wrestling history, the famous twin referee angle on the main event. And Ad-Free Shows members got to watch it back live alongside Earl Hebner on our latest premium watch-along event.
I got to use Andre's dressing room after all this happened, and Andre just loved me. I mean, he just wanted me basically always be his ref, and Hogan loved me to death.
That's just a small taste, a sampling, if you will, of what we have waiting for you. With 4 levels to choose from. 4. See for yourself why Ad-Free Shows is the best value in wrestling today. Sign up now, right now, at adfreeshows.com. Yeah.
The recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to My World. And of course, we couldn't do it without the Hall of Famer, your friend and mine, Double J, Jeff Jarrett. Jeff, how are you, man?
Oh, Conrad Thompson, how are you doing, my friend? Football's over. Bunch of changes of the seasons going on. I'm sitting here with you and Conrad. You see my shirt I got on today?
I do. Granular.
It's granular. folks, there's over 18 pages of notes to get into this episode. So it is going to be super granular. Talking about my rookie year, Conrad, names, Joe LeDuc. I forgot about Paul Diamond. I didn't forget about, but I mean, just Tommy Rich, lots of names. But how are you doing? Conrad? How's your world going today?
My world is fantastic. Excited to be here with you. Enjoyed a great Super Bowl. We all wanted something that was going to be a fun and exciting game, and we got it. Of course, a lot of people had their feelings hurt, myself included, that the Eagles didn't get the win.
Oh, come on.
Listen, I was pulling for Jalen, man. I can't help it. You know, him and Devonta, the two Alabama boys playing pitch and catch. That's cool.
Whoa. Come on. Don't be that Alabama fan. Jalen is an Oklahoma product.
No, I know that's where he finished. But, I mean, you still claim Tennessee, right?
No, don't muddy the waters here, pal. You can't jump on back. I'm kidding. No. It was a great game. Let me ask you this. I'm not going somewhere with this. Who did you watch the game with?
I watched it with my mom, dad, sister, and my lovely wife, Megan.
Okay. So let's talk halftime.
Yeah.
Because Karen and Jaron, my youngest daughter, they were in the room. Jaron didn't care much about the game, but she was doing laundry and she had stopped in between. What was the reaction in the room? Or did y'all kind of bypass and go get refreshments? Or
we used halftime to go play cards. Our family is very competitive at playing the card game Rook. Are you familiar with that? Do you know what Rook is?
I do.
So we were counting the minutes down until halftime. Mom's not really a football fan, and my wife humors me and has to watch it. But we said, all right, we'll play Rook at halftime. So I heard the music. I didn't get to see the performance. I was playing cards. And I kind of forgot how many hits Rihanna had, but I didn't see much of the actual performance itself, the visual, if you will.
It's just kind of amazing that me and Coach, you're into the game and it's a hell of a game and which way's it going to go. And as we went into the halftime, is Mahomes' ankle? I mean,
what's going to happen?
High drama. And I thought it was a great game all the way through, fun to watch. This goes without saying that Joe Burrow took another 5 steps backwards because, I mean, just Abyss, face it. Clipboard Joey the clipboard got warmer, probably closer to his immediate future. Mahomes played his butt off. I'll just say that. But back to the halftime show. I thought it was fascinating. The females in the room, you just kind of go right into analysis. And then I get the old Twitter machine out and I try to look at the mentions. Rihanna pregnant? Have you seen did you go? You probably didn't. Just the trending or go on the hashtag.
My sister said she used this whole show to show that she was pregnant, and I didn't see any of that. I was playing cards, and I was like, I don't know. What I did find interesting though is I saw a great thread on Twitter, and I retweeted it. That just talked about the business of the halftime show and how much it matters to those performers. Of course, they don't get paid for that, but the effect it has on their real business afterwards was phenomenal. As a business guy, you should go out of your way to see it. And as a business guy, I want to ask you, how smart is WWE to have now made it a tradition to have a belt ready there with their giant logo and side plates? Mahomes went super viral with that. And I, as a belt guy, as you can tell from my backdrop, do not like that design. But you want to talk about branding. That's something money can't even buy. My goodness. Genius move by WWE.
Through the years, people were saying, oh, that hit pop culture or this did that. And, going back to the Andy Kaufman, Jerry Lawler, hey, that got way outside of wrestling. That got into pop culture. And Liberace and Sidney Lauper and WrestleMania 1, 2, and 3 and all that. And then we weaved in and out and business down, all this. And you just kind of think, oh, wrestling was Attitude Era. Was it, or was it not pop culture? Absolutely it was. The ratings, through the years, that's kind of been a running theme. And now when you just kind of take a step back, we won't use the dirty word, but no, I don't believe it. And I've never thought it's a dirty word. It's the same thing. Pro wrestling, sports entertainment. It is without question just ingrained in pop culture because now people, they don't think about carrying a trophy around. They think about throwing a belt over their shoulder.
It's amazing.
And if you think about how long boxing, and MMA is late to the party, but how long, Muhammad Ali, they didn't really brand belts in the heyday of boxing, and Sugar Ray Leonard. I mean, they had them, but it just wasn't. But along comes sports entertainment, professional wrestling, and now it is a truly a part of pop culture because of all the great plays Mahomes did, and the high five and the teammates, and standing on the podium. What went viral? Him holding the belt. I thought they just branded what it looks like to be a champion. Good for the industry, to say the least.
Great for the industry. Congrats to the Chiefs, and specifically Mahomes playing hurt. And shout out to Andy Reid, man. 2 world titles now for Mahomes. That's awesome, dude.
He's next level. So you got to give any comment on the stupidity of Chris Abyss, Joe Parks, Burrow comment. Can we just kind of put a button on this for the season? Because I was in a little game thing last night that a Super Bowl poll. Our man Danny Engler puts it out every year, and there's like 35 people. Chris Park out of 35, I think, finished 36.
That's right.
I was Conrad. True story. I actually won it, and here's why. Rudy Charles' direct report is John Cone. He was above me. 2 kids, two family members of the Engler family were like 3 and 4. And then it's a fictitious name. Rudy enters like 7 different times. So he ups his odds to try to win every year. And I said, hey, who is this guy? He said, oh, he's a whole old high school buddy from Wright's football or some nonsense. Anyway, so I won the poll last night, and the Abyss finished 36 or 37 out of 35. But can we just put a bow on Burrow's comments, Conrad?
Well, here's the thing. I like Joe Burrow and think he's going to be a bona fide player for a long, long time. I know you disagree on that. However, I think last night was a star-making performance for Jalen Hurts. Not being in a big market, not necessarily having the hype and hoopla. I mean, he doesn't have the endorsement opportunities that a lot of the other superstar talent do. But Jalen showed he is of that cut. So, yes, I think Burrow's ranking goes down just a little bit. Jalen is now above him. I think that's firm.
Well, I think Josh Wilson. I think, all kidding aside, and we always have fun here with it. I just think you got to win the rings.
Yes.
And it goes back and forth, AFC, NFC, and what team's hot and all that. But when you just look at the AFC, Mahomes is clearly up there. And I just think Josh, the Bills have a lot of talent and a lot of studs, and some other AFC team out west or something's going to make us. All kidding aside, I think it just puts Burrow that much further down the rung, and his comment about he's the next Joe Montana, I think he's much, much further away from that when he actually came out with that buffoonery.
I mean, here's the deal. When you asked who I watched the game with, I could have watched it with Burrow because he wasn't at the Super Bowl and never will be unless he buys a ticket. I mean, we all know that. But I'm not going to comment on Mr. Parks. I found that maybe all the rumors were true. He's sensitive. And when I got text messages last week, I was like, man, I was just fucking around. I'm sorry. I'll never mention your name again. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I thought we were just busting balls. But I mean, for the record, since we're doing it, here's what happened. I was standing by the guardrail, and we were in Nashville, and the Monster Abyss comes over in a tweed jacket with elbow patches, and he had an ascot on that looked fucking ridiculous. And he had Michael Hayes seamstress with him, and his pant legs were dragging the damn floor. Like that backside was just muddy and dirty. But he comes over and he pulls his glasses down like Mr. Peanut, and Boogs, hang on 1 second, because he was producing a Boog segment and wearing glasses, not debatable, not up for discussion. Joe Burrow's the next Joe Montana. And you and I looked at each other like, what? Counting cards. Wapner. All right. Now that we've gotten our stuff out of the way today. By the way, the Monster Abyss is the greatest homegrown talent in the history of TNA. Just want to throw that out there.
Okay. That was a random shout out.
Well, listen, if we can just yell counting cards in the middle of a conversation, we can do that too. Let's get back to why we're here. Oh, before we do, one last thing. I hope you have fun tomorrow night, because it looks as if after the Acclaimed have managed to somehow escape dropping the tag titles to you, the Guns have somehow snuck the tag titles out, but you're not done getting some of that Acclaimed ass, and you're not looking to scissor anybody. You're looking to guitar some folks.
Yep.
And from what I understand, it's a big 8-man tag with Granddaddy Ass, Orange Cassidy, and the Acclaimed taking on what I believe to be the greatest faction in the history of sports entertainment since the NWO and Four Horsemen. I think I say to myself, when you think about a Mount Rushmore of all-time wrestling factions, it's the Four Horsemen. It's the NWO. And listen, I'll give you this third one. It could go either way. Some of you younger fans are going to say Bullet Club. I don't know about that. Some of you older fans might say the Dangerous Alliance. Nobody was watching. I don't know about that. Maybe you might even say DX. Feels like a little NWO light to me. But we'll leave one open spot. But there's no denying that fourth spot, it's not for some goofy outfit called the Elite. Nay. You know where I'm going. It's Jay Lethal. It's Satnam Singh. It's our man Sanjay Dutt. And of course, the leader of the band, who may or may not be able to play guitar, Double J Jeff Jarrett.
Oh, I appreciate that, Conrad. The foursome. We need to name our foursome.
Let's do it right now.
Well, there's lots of names. Maybe we'll get the listeners to chime in. There's a lot of chatter going on. We'll see where that takes us. Maybe that could have been one of the topics when me and RJ sat down. Did you get a chance to see me and RJ?
Dude, I loved, hey, EW, if you haven't seen it, go out of your way. If you enjoy what we do on this program, you don't want to miss Jeff Jarrett sitting down with RJ City. It is a can't miss program every single week, but this may have been the one that tickled me the most. Let's get into this week's show. Yahtzee! We're going to talk about your rookie year in professional wrestling. Wow. By the way, we're doing it with a live studio audience. Want to shout out everybody who's tagging in here over on adfreeshows.com. I know John Hickson and Keith Morrison and Coach Rosie and Darren Staley and everybody, Mark Cyrus, everybody's here with us. Appreciate you guys riding shotgun with us on a very special episode of My World. We're going back to the very beginning. Man, I've told you before, your life is a movie. And I've even sort of freestyled, it probably shouldn't be a movie. It should be a series on Netflix or something. And I just imagine it's like, I don't know what maybe I wanted the Young Rock episodes to be, because here we are and you're surrounded by wrestling history. I mean, that famous Hulk Hogan video where they call him the Hulk, voiced over by Michael St. John, and he's shot in this dramatic way, and you get all these different dimensions and facts on Hogan. This is years before Hulkamania was running wild. That happened in your dad's basement, and Kamala was created in the woods out behind the house. I mean, this is all happening as you're a young man. It almost feels as if you were destined to be in professional wrestling, but you've got all these siblings and none of them were. Why did you gravitate to this more so than your siblings?
I don't really have, I'll say, a logical answer for that, other than my older brother was more into, much more into academics and arts. He could play the hell out of a piano and all that. He never really gravitated towards sports like I did. I loved anything and everything growing up, every sport, anything I could ride, go-karts. Anyway, I don't know. I just gravitated toward the action or any of that kind of stuff. But my younger brother's a hell of an athlete. I don't really have an exact answer to that, Conrad, like why. But I was mesmerized from – my parents were divorced when I was 3, so I grew up till I was I moved out to my dad's house. I was 14, 15, spent summers, all that. But I can remember – even living in my mom's house, sneaking like a lot of kids, staying up late, watching WNG, Channel 2, ABC, the Nick Goulas promotion, me watching different things. But I just always loved wrestling. I mean, again, my dad wasn't around a whole lot when I was real young. So I can't say I watched wrestling because my dad was a wrestler. I loved it, period. Like a lot of kids out there just grew up, wasn't flipping through the channels. It was destination viewing, but I loved it from my earliest memories. I was always really into it. And, but I'll say my first love was basketball as a kid. So, maybe delusional when I was real young, but all I did was play football, basketball, and baseball, ran track. Quit baseball, got into track big time. But as a kid, Conrad, it was sports. And then when I moved out with my dad, it was sports, work, and he let me referee. And I don't want to get too far into it, but I know our jumping off point is 1986, my debut year. But that's kind of the backstory, and feel free to dive in anywhere else.
Did your dad push you to get in? Was he hesitant to get in? It feels like a lot of times we hear parents in the wrestling business say, now, son, I don't want you to get in this business. This isn't the kind of business for you. And they often discourage it. Did your dad discourage or encourage?
He didn't discourage, and he really didn't encourage. As I look back on it now, I got to spend time with him this past weekend, and we chat present, past, all kinds of different things, wrestling. But as I look back on it now, I think he was just probably under the assumption that it'll happen at some point, but he knew how much I was into basketball. I just, as my, freshman year, sophomore, I became tunnel vision on basketball, quit playing football, quit playing track, didn't do anything but basketball year round. And I was just focused on that. I wanted to go play college ball. I was really into that. And then, that's what I was doing when I guess fate or timing or however it may be, that to get kind of a time frame, the golden age of territories was 80 to 85. Conrad, would you say that's kind of a fair assessment? 80 to 85, 78 to 85, the golden age of territories.
Yeah. I mean, I would think the late 70s through, 85 is probably when Vince started to really take over and it started to taper.
Yes, I think it started to taper, but because that's when Crockett was bought out and Watts was bought out and Kansas City and Florida shut down and, all the different stories. But, the territory business around here and my dad making those videos and developing talent, it was super red hot. 80, 81, the Letterman thing. I mean, the Kaufman thing and Macho and Road Wars, box office was, just crazy good. But when you kind of look at 83, so that's first WrestleMania, 84, 85, about 85, things started going down and business was down, and Lawler had lost a loser leave town match, and quote unquote to give him a rest in the territory. And most of the time when he took a rest, you started building as many heels as you possibly could and heat. And the King's going to come back and he's going to have 3 or 4 opponents ready, and you're going to pop a territory. And over that, calendar year, it's going to be black ink as opposed to red ink, and kind of hang on and survive and do what you got to do to build things. And that they had kind of done that method many, many times. Well, end of 85, getting into 86, business was down. And again, Lawler was not, he was, had lost that loser tape. So they said, okay, we've got to do an angle. We got to shoot an angle to bring him back. And I had refereed the prior 2 summers, and I was in the middle of my freshman year of playing college basketball. Matter of fact, we had a tournament when, getting toward the end in March, as March Madness goes. This is the whole timing of it, that I was in a college basketball end of season when my dad says, "Hey, son, we've kind of got we got an idea here. What do you think about this?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you tell me about it?" And he's like, "Hey, you're going to be refereeing on TV." And, I can't remember word for word, but hey, we're going to beat your ass. And then I'm going to come out and save you. And then when I save you, they're going to beat me up, and we're going to have kind of a wild fight, and they're going to end up kicking the shit out of both of us. And that will lead into Lawler coming back. And Conrad, I didn't really wrap my head around what all that meant, but the end result was the King came back, and that was the last sellout in the Mid-South Coliseum for the territory business.
Whew, man, a lot of history there. let's go back just a little bit and talk about, when do you remember being the first time you actually got in a wrestling ring? I'm not saying in front of people. I'm saying, I think there's like two schools of thought. There's the idea of, hey, that's no place for kids, and that's where people go to work, and this is serious business, and you're supposed to have respect for it. And then there's the, well, he's the promoter's kid, so I guess it's technically his ring too. When do you remember getting in as a young man?
Two kind of bizarre memories. One was, so when I went to the matches in Nashville, which was 10 minutes from my house, the fairgrounds where I grew up on that side, I would get there, 2 hours before, but the doors would be open or close to open. And I'd really just end up going in the dressing room, and then showtime, go out and sit on back row ringside or wherever they're going to sit me that night. But one of the early road trips was to Boutwell.
In Birmingham, yeah.
Ironically enough. And, a road trip, you leave earlier, get there earlier. Crazy Luke Graham hollered across the stage, scared the crap out of me. He was just being a heel and having fun before the doors open. But I got in the ring there one time when you're saying the first time, and I don't know, maybe 10 years old, 11 years old. And I was just saying, walk up the steps and stand there. And then kind of through the years, that kind of stuff, spot shows, get up in the ring, but never did the hit the rope stuff. And I'm going to try to take a bump here. That you just didn't, it was just a different era. You didn't run the ropes and take bumps. At least I didn't. I was, I guess you could say in one aspect, a little bit more, I don't say respectful. I just didn't do it. I knew it's not a playground.
That's right.
And I guess that was conveyed to me one way or another.
So I guess the question is, and I don't mean for this to sound as silly as it is, but I just want to use plain speak. Do you remember falling down in a ring the first time? Because I think the perception from a lot of people who are quote unquote non-fans or maybe casual fans are, well, it's a trampoline. No, it's not.
Well, when you referee and, I'm 16 or 17 and, I mean, a boy, little, I'm skinny as a rail, cause all I did was play basketball. And so very little muscle tone, on my upper body for sure. And maybe my first ref buck, Conrad, which probably, thank God that's not on tape, just terrible. But I can remember the physicality going, now I've taken some charges in basketball, but my God, I just got steamrolled. It's just a completely different level of physicality. Probably the first couple of ref bumps or when I went, okay. But funny thing about adrenaline is that, even when you're that part of it, that it's kind of a jar, but you're still listening to the crowd and the drama. And, at that stage, oh my God, what am I supposed to do next? What am I supposed to do next? Oh yeah. All I got to do is roll over and count when they scream at me, that kind of simplicity. But probably the first couple of ref bumps was the first time that I went, okay, a little different here than I expected. It's certainly not that trampoline out back.
So you never took a quote unquote flat back or ran the ropes or any of that stuff before you were doing the referee spots?
No.
Okay.
None of that. That didn't come till, we'll get into it. I shot that, cause I went back and played, refereed summers, did whatever simple ref bumps and that kind of stuff. And then, college basketball, my whole plans were to just 4 years and play college. I mean, that was it. And then they came up with the idea for the angle, which I'm like, okay, pretty simple. And then all of a sudden, as we're going to get into it, I probably ought to start figuring out this wrestling stuff, which came really quick.
So before we get there, I do want to ask, when we're thinking about how all this is coming to be, we've never really discussed it. When you're asked to come in and referee some as a young man in high school during the summer, has anybody smartened you up to the business at all?
So, and I got to kind of back up just to, the refereeing part, Conrad, came almost as, oh, wait, he's here. Why was I here? Set up the ring. setting up a wrestling ring is a hell of a lot easier with two folks. One guy has to get some folks that will help and don't exactly know what they're doing. If you have two guys that know what they're doing, you can set up a wrestling ring and you can get your rhythm and you can get it going, and it makes it so much easier. And there's a rhythm to all that. So that's what I did first, is set up wrestling rings. And doing that, oh, he's here. Why don't we, hey, son, back in those days, pack your khakis and go buy you a ref shirt. Oh no, we've got one for him, whatever referee was there. And so that's kind of how the whole refereeing thing started. And ironically, first match I ever refereed, Frank Morrell, who later became my riding partner for almost 7 years. The first match I ever refereed was him over in an Arkansas town, scared to death, didn't know Frank, and he's the one who kind of walked me through the match.
That's amazing. So listen, let's talk about how you get into this whole referee circumstance. We've briefly, in our Dutch Mantel episode, talked about the hot angle on Memphis TV. March 1st, 1986, Bill Dundee and Buddy Landell are going to beat up an 18-year-old referee, Jeff Jarrett, after their match. And also Jerry Jarrett, when he tries to make the save for him, specifically targeting his good eye. Dutch then comes running out to make the save from the showers in his bare feet, shampoo still in his hair, and ends up picking up Jeff and carrying him out. And 2 weeks later on TV, Jeff does his very first interview, where he explains why he wants to become a pro wrestler and reads the Don't Quit poem for his brother Jason that he would later recite in his 2018 Hall of Fame speech. I figure now's just as good a time of any. Let's play your first interview here on the heels of this pretty hot angle on Memphis TV. Here we go.
Oh, Lance has asked me today to answer 2 questions he had for me, and the first one is concerning why I wanted to become a professional wrestler. And the second is why I wanted to get back in the ring and referee Bill Dundee's match. Well, last night when I was organizing my notes, I wanted to be prepared for this, and I was a little nervous. And well, tell you the truth, my notes began to look like a book about my entire life. So I realized that, TV time won't permit me to give you all the reasons why I want to become a professional wrestler. I can only give you a brief explanation about it. When I was real young, I woke up every Saturday morning and watched my dad on television. I was really excited about it every Saturday morning. And I'd go out in the afternoons and my friends would say, "Hey, I saw your dad on TV," and I'd sort of feel proud because, my dad was on television. And then as I got older, I started going to the matches and watching him. And this is the first time I really saw that people saw him as a true hero to him. A lot of people loved him. He had a lot of fans. And up until this time, well, he was just good old dad to me. And then as time went on, I kept going to the matches, and I kept enjoying watching him. And I'd get nervous sometimes watching him wrestle, and I'd get scared. But I grew into one of his fans, you could say. And gradually, I think I was probably his biggest fan. And at this time, well, he became like a hero to me. And I began to listen to him he had always taught me lessons in life about courage, morality, hope, love, and faith. And this is the time when I became he was my biggest hero. And that, I wanted to be just like him. He became the best wrestler he possibly could. And I want to follow in his footsteps and be the best wrestler I can. I hope this has given you a brief explanation on why I want to become a professional wrestler. And now to Lance's second question. Last week, a couple of weeks back on television, I refereed Dundee's match. And now I want to do it again because my father has always taught me, don't quit. He said I'm going to stumble in life, but every time I stumble, get right back up and try it again. And in our household, in my room and in Jason's room, he's my little 9-year-old brother, There's a poem that hangs in there, and it's called Don't Quit. And Dad, he wrote at the bottom of Jason's poem that if this is the legacy he could leave us, he'd be proud. And it goes something like this. When things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. Life is queer, with its twists and turns, as every one of us sometimes learns, and many a fella turns about when he might have won had he stuck it out. Don't give up, though the pace seems slow. You may succeed with another blow. Often the goal is nearer than it seems to a faint and faltering man. Often the struggler has given up when he might have captured the victor's cup. And he learned too late when the night came down how close he was to the golden crown. Success is failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the clouds of doubt, and you never can tell how close you are. It may be near when it seems afar. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse that you mustn't quit.
Man, I know that was probably uncomfortable for you, but I loved it. I mean, that you talk about putting yourself out there, you know, you and your dad. I mean, that's a big risk. You know, you're the promoter's son. Everybody knows it. And obviously expectations are what they are for your quote unquote first promo, but dude, that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. It felt real because it was like, that's not a scripted actor there. That's just a kid talking. And it felt to the viewer at home, it had to feel real, right?
And I'll get emotional. Just because of what he's going through.
Can we talk about that?
I'm not real sure, Conrad. Honestly, I mean, I'll let you diplomatically kind of.
Does he want it out there?
You know, Conrad, hell, I don't know. You know, I honestly, that is, God's honest truth, Conrad. You know,
is he going to be upset with me if I do the right thing here?
Well, then go ahead.
But Mr. Jarrett has esophagus cancer and he's kept it quiet. And, he called me personally and let me know, I guess a couple months ago, and I just didn't know, and texted you after, and you were kind of surprised he had told me because he hadn't told anybody. And, he's got the right attitude. He is the man who taught his sons those poems, and, he's got his heads up on this. And I believe in the power of prayer and positive thinking, and we need to send some positive vibes and some prayers his way, because he's in for a big old fight and he doesn't get to script this one, but somebody we all know, like, and trust does. And I trust that it's going to turn out just fine. And he's going to get his hand raised at the end of this, but I didn't know that we were going to share that. And I thought it was sort of hush hush and we weren't supposed to talk about it, but I didn't expect that.
Yeah, I'll put it on you.
I didn't expect that reaction from you, but you're exactly right. It is pretty timely considering his real life battle, not wrestling.
And
take all the time you need, man. I thought it was a great promo. I thought it was, of course it was a story, but, it's a real life family. It's a real life father son. And
the handwritten note he wrote at the bottom of Jason's about the legacy. That's what got me when you know, watching that back, I was laughing at myself, Conrad. Jesus, that went on forever. About 3.5, 4 minutes. What the hell was he thinking? My first promo that long, but, oh man, I've just lost my train of thought. Anyway, when I read the notes, the thing that popped back in my brain is it's a story.
Yes.
And that, you know, another little footnote. I know Meltzer wrote Jeff Jarrett, and he should have. This is not a criticism, but the people that were watching on TV those that knew. But I would say, Conrad, you'd have to be a really hardcore fan, to know that referee was the promoter's kid, because Conrad, I went as Jeff Leonard on TV.
Okay.
And in spot shows. So, Conrad, we're not even, it's such a different era. It's kayfabe. For a lot of people, that's the guy that sets up the ring and gets lucky to referee a few matches around the territory. Again, those that knew, but the general paying audience, I don't even want to call it the casual fan, the weekly fans, some knew, some didn't know. Because, how many times was I in Louisville in my entire high school deal? 30 times. But, but I'd come in the back. So Evansville, same deal. They didn't know. But kind of when the angle was shot as, boom, this referee's getting beat up, and then the realization and the way Lance, and look, I've, through the years thought back on this, the way Lance and Dave Brown, and that's the promoter's kid, a lot of people are like, oh, God almighty, Dundee's going to get his ass whipped by the King. He beat up, just the story. Everybody can relate to their kid getting beat up, and my dad's got one eye, and the promoter and kind of retired wrestler, but the King is going to come back and kick the living crap out of these two heels. That's the emotional connection. I say all that to say that long promo, was after all this, but the story that was told during this, 90 days of me stepping into the business, Conrad, I'm just lucky, man. I mean, that was my first angle, and to kind of have that authenticity and emotion involved, and the King of Memphis, you just think of all the people, Lawler, it's and during this time, people, I think, with his health situation going on, and people, they know him as the Attitude Era, and him and JR and the Great, but just a different era. Lawler was Michael Jordan, Muhammad Ali, Elvis, whatever you want to say, of Memphis. And so just to kind of be put in that conversation, and then, the next step in this progression of the storyline, everybody's talking about the bloodline storyline. I'm not comparing at all. I'm just kind of saying, when storylines get going, the progression was the referee got beat up, and this and this and this, and Lawler came back, and then all of a sudden I do that promo, which, Jesus, again, why the hell did he let me talk that long? But the story of don't quit, here's this kid going to step back in. They wrote a good story. I'm saying all that to say Mole Man and Lawler was right in the middle of all of it. And who knows, maybe more so than my dad, as far as writing the story. They wrote it 50-50. Just is a blurring the lines of a real story. And that's, I got emotional on today's situation, but I look back on it, and that's what this podcast is supposed to be, is I got lucky to be in that kind of story.
It was a fantastic story, and it continues on TV on April 5th. So about a month later, Tony Falk goes over to Lance Russell and talks about issuing challenges to Jackie Fargo and Jeff Jarrett, but he's yet to hear anything from them. And Tony Falk is even going to call you a coward. Falk wants the match to happen anywhere and anytime, and Lawler comes out to confront him. Falk is going to hide behind the commentary table, and Lawler says that Falk is a coward. And Lawler talks about how Falk had tossed ink in his eyes when he wrestled Bill Dundee. And he thinks Falk wants to wrestle Jarrett because he's not even a wrestler, and thinks that's the only way he can win a match. Falk backs away from Lawler and gets shoved. And then you come out and tackle Tony Falk. You get on top of him, delivering some rights. Eddie Marlin comes out and pulls you off. A lot of our younger listeners have heard the name Eddie Marlin, and they probably don't know how that ties into you.
Lay it out.
He's your grandfather.
Yeah. So again, parents got divorced when I was 3. My father's ex-wife, Deborah, when he married her, Deborah's father. So my step grandfather's Eddie Marlin, and he was a wrestler. He in the Middle Tennessee area, and then he obviously got over in the promotion side and the box office side. So he had been, back in those days specifically, they really called it the office. but he was in the office and wrestled. And then as time went on and Lawler, my dad started and broke away from Nick and Roy and ran his own promotion, Eddie became on television the figurehead promoter, but in spot shows from north of Louisville, Kentucky to south of Memphis, Tennessee, and all points in between, he was a promoter and promoted towns every Thursday and Friday for years and years and years. That's the connection.
Of
and
course,
my riding partner and one of my riding partners.
This angle leads to a match 2 days later. You teed it up a few minutes ago, but April 7th, 1986, 2 days after the television angle, it's you versus Tony Falk at the Mid-South Coliseum. So much for you having your first match on some little spot show somewhere. It's at the Mid-South Coliseum. Tony Falk is on a losing streak at the time, except he's guaranteed victory against Jeff Jarrett, but it doesn't happen. The match goes to a 10-minute time limit draw. We did a watch along of this for ad-free shows last year, if you'd like to check that out. But talk us through that, man. Mid-South Coliseum, 10-minute draw. This is a big time stuff here for a young man.
So we shot the angle in Memphis where I was the referee, and I went back to playing basketball, and we finished up our season. And I'm still in school, and Tony Falk, and this is, again, part of the story, the whole setup, which had been months before this, and it's been done so many different ways, but Tony Falk was on the losing streak. He'd come out, 1 week, it's the opposite of Goldberg. He's 0-34 and 0-37 this year and 0-39. And that was his story. And, Dundee and Landale were the top heels, but Tony was one of those guys, and I'll say a utility guy that could do it all. I mean, as a heel, he just knew how to work, knew everything, knew timing, could work with anybody. And just, they, had known that, okay, let's keep a story going somewhere with Jeff, but he hadn't had a match. But let's get him in there. And, when I look back on it, like, what the hell were they thinking? But I had watched so much wrestling, Conrad, and the barn at my dad's place had a ring that stayed up, and they would have guys, from time to time in and out of there. The mat and the pads weren't on there, but the wood and everything. All they do is put the canvas over top of it. And Conrad, I probably had all of about 4 or 5 sessions with my dad and Tojo. We're out the barn the first probably 2 times. Then they invited Tony Falk over, all that. And, just the simplicity. Tojo's like, he would, and I'll call it, like a Japanese style on how to take flatbacks. I'll get into year 1 with their Kyo Sato and the whole on the job training, but there wasn't a lot of training. And Tony, again, I can't praise him enough. Just the setup was right, and the 10-minute time limit draw of the finish, you don't really think, oh, that's a simplistic finish, but it was just one of those things. The story fit it that, I didn't beat Tony, but he didn't beat me. So that's an emotional win for the audience that I just didn't get beat. That's how it was set up. So not a lot of training, but that was my you talk about getting thrown in the deep end. Woo. Right off the bat. That was it.
Yeah, no doubt. Your first TV match is a rematch with Tony Falk. It happens on April 12th. Now it's with a 15-minute time limit, and you win, but you're attacked after the match by Dundee and Landale again until the Butcher, Joe LeDuc, makes the save. Man, it's one thing to entertain a big old crowd at the Mid-South Coliseum, and it's a big building, make no mistake. But it's another thing to know, hey man, everybody in this doggone state is watching this right now. Like, the ratings for that show were astronomical. And yeah, I'm sure you had some friends and family and things like that in the Mid-South Coliseum, but everybody you went to school with, everybody you grew up with, they're all watching that television program. And there you are. Did you feel more pressure at the Coliseum for your first match, or more pressure for the second match, knowing everybody's going to see this?
That, Conrad, that first month, I'll say. Because again, I did the angle on Saturday morning, wrestled on Monday night. I wrestled Tony Falk again to a 10-minute Broadway the following Saturday night. So at the end of the month, I'm going to say I had 25 matches, in that month of April, just because of the schedule. The butterflies became tolerable. I was so I can't say I was scared, but Conrad, I was so nervous. It was like, on a completely different level of getting hyped up for a basketball game and wanting to go out and play good and to beat another team. It's just, it's one of those things that unless you really step through the ropes, it's hard to describe. But man, I was so psyched. I loved it. But man, the pressure, and I'd have to say that first TV match probably was much more pressure oriented than the first match, just because I had to do the sunset over the top flip. I mean, just kind of some things that, and I know my dad and they were, or Lawler, they were just like, Tony's going to walk you right through this. Just listen, listen. And that first TV match, there's, back in those days, there's so much less talking on TV. I'm talking about in the ring, in the communication. You just kind of had to go with it. I don't know, man. It's fun to relive or kind of rethink through it, because I'm just thinking, man, time flew. And yeah, hats off to Tony Falk.
The next week at the Mid-South Coliseum, it's a Monday, of course. It's Jeff and LeDuc winning by DQ. It's a tag match. And then it turns into a 6-man the following week. And now Jerry Lawler's on your team. So to see on the other side, Tony Falk, Dutch Mantel, Bill Dundee and Buddy Landell, 3 big stars. And now you've got the Michael Jordan of the community on your team. You want to talk about pressure, man. It just keeps building, right?
And this is something that's, I'll do my best. Quick description. The amount of communication that Lawler does at all times gives you a comfort level. He mentally is guiding you through everything. And as I look back on it now, he knew that he needed to do that to me. Because he just like, hey, Jeff, stand over here, do this, do that, do this. Hey, okay, just relax. We're going to do this. Let them, all right, whatever. That was kind of the whole mindset. He's an incredible in-ring general, the best.
It's got to be like growing up a wrestling fan to be in the Mid-South Coliseum tagging with Jerry Lawler. It feels make believe, right?
Well, in a lot of ways, for sure. That's what I'm saying. That first month or 3, 4, 5 weeks, it was all kind of so surreal. And then it's like one of those times you don't know when it happens, but you just kind of transitions into, oh, this is work. This is what we do. It becomes, I don't say second nature, but it's like you just, all of a sudden you're in the rhythm of it. But that first time when I felt like it would be the Rocky II theme, not Eye of the Tiger, but whatever music Lawler would come to the ring to. It's now Louisville, good reaction, Nashville, great reaction, Evansville, good reaction. He always got a good reaction, but you go to the ring or walk out with him and you kind of hear that roar. It was always on such a different level than any other babyface on the card, by far. That's when you knew you're with the rock star. That's simple. You are on stage with the star.
I'm curious, what's your grandma saying about all this? What's old Christine Jarrett saying about all this?
And I would see her every Saturday night. So now I'm out working that first month. And, she was excited, but worried to death and joke with me. Hey, I had a talk with Tony Falk earlier and blah, 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 blah. But then she would just flip a switch and say, now, you're judged a little bit different than folks trying to basically tell me, don't screw up, make sure you lay it in, make sure it looks good, be humble. And oh yeah, now how's your studies doing? And you're still in school. She harped on that through the following fall. She harped on that. School, how's your studies? You get your work done? I tell her, yes, Teeny, it's easy. I got it. Don't worry about it. You get your assignments? Yep, I got all that.
Because you called her Teeny too. You called her Teeny as well.
Oh yeah, that's what everybody. That's
even the grandkids called her Teeny.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was yeah. It just was passed on. Everybody. Well, business folks call her Miss Christine.
Right.
Yeah, but no, Teeny.
So you've told me before off air, maybe you've told it on air, that your mom or your grandma had one piece of advice about getting in the wrestling business, and you repeat it often. You want to share it with us again here?
It's so simplistic, but man, I think it's but you got to put it in context.
Context is king. So let's explain. She has never been an in-ring performer herself. She's always worked on the quote unquote office side and the business side. And listen, oftentimes people in the office make decisions that are best for the promotion, meaning what is going to make this business overall more money, sell more tickets, be more lucrative for the entire organization. And sometimes wrestlers have a tendency, and this is human nature, to think about maybe not what's best for the promotion, but what's best for me, the performer, me, the character. And I'm sure that was something that she had been up against a lot. And she wanted to remind you, I think, with this piece of advice you're going to impart, that you're a part of the wrestling business. You're not necessarily, quote unquote, just a performer in it. So even though you might be getting into that a little bit, let's not forget that this is the family business, this entire promotion, not just your career. And with that, she would often say,
Jeff, you can wrestle, but don't become a wrestler. And to go one step further, Conrad, I think it went for as much as how you operated within other talent, office, referees. I would say when the clock's on, she also had her way of saying, all right, when you clock out of your day job or of your wrestling, when you go home, she was so, and there's legendary stories of her setting up saving account for other wrestlers that don't go blow all your money. Don't go party all the time.
Don't be a star. Be a dude. Be a family guy.
Be a business. Look, me and my dad had some conversations over, we all are good at things and maybe not so good at things. Was Teeny, and I can't speak, but was she the loving, nurturing grandmother? Never. Like Conrad, never. Was she an incredible mentor, business-minded? I want you to succeed on your own long after I'm gone. When nobody's, when you don't have any guidance, use these principles, that kind of stuff. Oh my God, Conrad, a gift, a real gift. She had her head on straight in business, big time.
Did she, I've seen interviews where Jim Cornette would say she would oftentimes just grab guys by the ear, almost like out of a movie, if they weren't minding their P's and Q's.
Oh yeah.
I know we don't talk about the darker side of wrestling a lot on this program. The underbelly. But I'm sure she knew that there are some perks to being in the wrestling business that can often be tempting to a young man. Did she have any grandmother advice about that for you?
It's like, you ever seen a hawk sit up on the top of a telephone pole?
Yes.
And if let's just say hypothetically, a rat were to cross the road, what's that hawk do? Conrad, watch things like a hawk. She knew everything going on at her shows. And I'm talking about the box office, the heel dressing room, the babyface dressing room, front row, ringside, back row of ringside, up the general admission. This guy's over here is going to cause trouble. I'm going to put my officer over there. again, she knew the lay of the land. That's just how she was. Old school mentality, promoter that, again, she can sell tickets and she can watch the back door and the front door at the same time.
So if anybody had any party favors and she knew who those people were, she knew to make sure you're not hanging around those guys. And if a young lady who was friendly with some of the wrestlers happened to be nearby and you just needed to go get something from your car right fast, maybe that wasn't allowed. There was, I'm just saying hypothetically, grandma's here and we got our eyes on you.
Hey, honey, the matches are going to start in just a minute. Why don't you find your seat?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Well, somebody else was trying to find her seat, but that's a story for another time. Listen, you're going to keep working spot shows now after this. You'll work other towns like Nashville and Jackson and all over, and different iterations of these teams would happen, including Falk, who was also sometimes managing Sheik Abdul in there. And also too, you would team with Pat Tanaka and you would take on Tony Falk and friend of the show, Pat Rose. So you're getting some of your reps in here on the regular touring schedule for the promotion, right?
Big time. Again, looking at the research, and I looked at the heels and the baby faces that I got lucky enough to work with. Pat Tanaka, you go look at his WWF stuff, Orient Express with, a flat backer. I mean, I tried to model. That's the thing that I tell guys today, man, go get reps. Nothing replaces it. That's the thing. I wrestled 6 or 7 times a week for 7 years, give or take a few months here and there. But that first year, I'm 90 days in, I'm well over 100 matches because I would work twice on Saturdays, TV in Nashville, or maybe get to work twice at a spot show on a Sunday or a Thursday, open a match and maybe a 6-man tag, after the first intermission, whatever it may be. But getting those reps, and Pat Rose, a hell of a heel, just knew the simplistics. But man, it is like to say that I really had, a lot of guys, I call it, they go into the gym or the training and they get reps in and they do the moves. And some guys even use crash pads and this and that and all that. And I think that's a great teaching method, all this. But I got lucky enough to go scrimmage, if you will. But they were real scrimmages, and they were, they call in football or basketball, hey, we using refs for the scrimmages? Oh no, this is a time real scrimmage game simulation. Being in the ring with Pat Tanaka and him doing, at the beginning, let's say 80% of the work. And then the next night, maybe 70%. And then the next night, maybe 60. And I get up to, hey man, I'm kind of doing 50-50 and Pat's cool with it, or the heels are cool with it. It's on the job training. That's how you learn. I mean, there is no replacing getting real reps.
Well, there's no replacing restaurant quality steak. Until now, the wait is over. Quality steak, free shipping, period. The Backyard Butcher's restaurant quality steak boxes are now available online. And this deal's coming in hot. Get that steakhouse quality, get the bulk meat specials. It's all been responsibly sourced from America's farms, and it's delivered right to your door. And right now, for a limited time, Backyard Butchers is offering our listeners 15% off, plus free shipping. And check this out, 4 free ribeyes for life with every subscription. We're talking steakhouse quality steak here, even cheaper than what you can get it for at the grocery store. So it's not only better than what you can get, it's also cheaper. How do you beat that? And by the way, they don't just have steak. They've got your pork and your chicken too. And we're suggesting just cut out the middleman grocery stores. It's still the same 100% American beef, pork, and chicken that you love. It's all been sourced directly from farms in the heartland of America. And it's going to show up to your door in an eco-friendly insulated box, making sure that meat is the perfect temperature. It'll be fresh. It'll be safely packaged. But it's also cheaper. How is it better and cheaper? They cut out the middleman, boys and girls. I want to give you a heads up. There's no subscriptions or memberships necessary here. They do have an option where you can choose to subscribe, or you can cancel anytime. But take it from me, once you try it once, you'll want to subscribe and reorder. You're going to love the price. You're going to love the ease. You're going to love the quality, and you're going to love the taste of the steak, the pork, and the chicken. Why not, man? Check it out. We got a special offer for you where you get 15% off and free shipping. And it's worth mentioning again, 4 free ribeyes for life with every subscription. That's 4 free premium restaurant quality juicy ribeyes right to your front door. Seriously, you're going to thank me later. Go to backyardbutchers.com and be sure to use our promo code MyWorld. Get 15% off your order. Get free shipping and 4 free ribeyes for life. That's backyardbutchers.com and the promo code MyWorld gets you 15% off and free shipping and 4 free ribeyes for life. Something you won't forget, Jeff, is May 10th. We're back at the TV show here in Memphis. It's a studio show, of course. You're going to be teaming with Billy Travis and making his return to the territory fresh off WWF TV. It's Uncle Elmer. Now, listen, I know that a lot of people take a look at Uncle Elmer and say, is that Conrad's uncle? And it might be, but serious business. This guy's fresh off WWF TV. You as a young man cutting your teeth in the wrestling business, I'm sure you have a lot of pride and are really proud of what your family business has been able to do, but you're also not immune to television and seeing that the WWF is all over national TV and MTV, and it's hotter than ever. I mean, WrestleMania is now in the rearview mirror. It is the hot show. And to have a guy who was fresh off of that show now in your family studio and you're working with him, as silly as it is, it had to feel like, dude, he's been to the dance, right?
I remember watching the wedding on TV.
Yes.
Do you remember that, Conrad?
Saturday night's main event.
The spectacle of the entertainment value. I just remember, the Saturday night main events, just kind of watching. And I know I just recently got into a pretty good conversation at one of the Dynamites with a true, he's a fan, a true tape trader, that, how they were introduced to different styles of wrestling through the tape trading days and that kind of stuff.
Me too.
But watching a guy, we'll call it from our territory, and Plowboy, that's what I always called him. He's a Memphis guy and a Lawler buddy, and he'll sell you a watch and hey neighbor and country is cornbread and all that. But like you said, not only was he physically larger than life, a big old dude, but him being in that wedding with all the pomp and circumstance, and now he's here. Conrad, I can remember specifically going, okay, but I tell you what, here in Memphis, when we get going, we kick ass. So I'm not real sure how this is going to, it was like, okay, he's here. How's he going to fit into this style? If he doesn't work with Lawler or just because I knew his limitations, even at this early stage, like his limitations as a performer, this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But yes, dude, Saturday night's main event.
Listen, I know that when people hear, oh, the wedding, and you're sort of talking about it as if it was a cool thing, there's going to be a lot of people who are like, oh, weddings suck. All right, here's the thing, guys. This was one of the very first wrestling weddings, and it's certainly the first one on NBC. Yeah. This isn't a syndicated show. It's not on TBS. Not disparaging those. Those are great. But this is big time. This is broadcast television. People without cable saw this, and it was a huge rating success. So it's big business. And now he's in the ring with you. And they're even calling him Uncle Elmer, although that only lasts a week. WWE quickly sends a cease and desist. Then he's the giant hillbilly. Next up though, you're going to wrestle Tony Falk in a series of loser leaves town matches. Now I say a series of these because you're doing them all across the territory. That happens at the end of May. And then you start teaming up with Tojo Yamamoto on the road to take on the Nightmares or the Southern Tag Champs, the Mod Squad. Talk to me about teaming up with Tojo, because from what I understand, he was pretty influential in helping you just get familiar and comfortable in the confines of a match and just a wrestling ring in general, right? So, yeah. Well, so Tojo literally was my dad's tag team partner, and another guy that it was Tojo Yamamoto and Jerry Jarrett. And in today's
you don't see tag teams like this anymore because, my dad was, I don't call the boy next door, but he was Jerry Jarrett and did all the selling and gave Tojo the hot tag, and Tojo would come in. And Tojo had been a monster heel for years and switched babyface and saved the kid. So there was an emotional connection with the family. And then Tojo helped my father a lot in his early days on selling. And so my dad just was like, hey, these are these early days. Again, riding with Tojo is a lot safer than riding with, we'll call it, one of the younger guys. Again, I'm 18 and they're trying to kind of guide me and teach the ropes. But Tojo on rides, he would be repetitive, sometimes drive me crazy because he'd tell the same story over and over and over. But he would, Conrad, just imagine this. We're driving down the road. Tojo's in his big box Lincoln Continental, and I'm over in the passenger side. Tell me to pull down the visor mirror and look into it, and then he'd reach over and grab my ear and grab my shoulder and grab my arm, and he's like pinch it and all that. But he wanted me to get comfortable, but he wanted me to look in a mirror
and see your facials. Yeah,
that's it. Taught me facials. If there's one thing to take away from Tojo, it's the repetition of understanding how to convey pain. Again, that's acting or whatever you want to say. So many guys today, they just, it's like in the writing the book of how to become especially a babyface, but heels as well. That kind of chapter is either skipped over or never understood or whatever. It's that you're going to do all these crazy moves. You got to kind of understand the facials and the body language and all that. That's what Tojo taught me. So my dad, again, behind the camera, he knew the car time Tojo would teach me and keep me out of trouble. I think there was but also in the ring, there was a lot of, I'll call it sentimental, old school fans. Oh, there's Tojo teaming with the son now. That was kind of the box office mentality of that.
I just love going back and talking about this era because, I'm here in Huntsville, Alabama. So anytime I run into someone who doesn't keep up with modern wrestling, it's usually an older person. I don't mean old. I just mean older than me. So somebody in their 50s or 60s, they will just randomly say, and you're into that wrestling stuff, right? Cause it's my normal business in Huntsville is mortgage stuff. So that's how people here know me. And then they might've heard, this or that or whatever. And so they'll say, you're into that wrestling stuff, right? And then they always say, and I mean, without exception, Jeff, yeah, I don't watch wrestling anymore, but boy, when I was a kid, I used to go down to the Coliseum, Tojo Yamamoto, always the first name, every single time.
No way. In Huntsville?
Every time. Tojo Yamamoto was the biggest star in Huntsville, Alabama back in the day. I'm saying before Bobby Eaton, got up and going.
Yeah, the 60s, early 70s.
People who are in this area, the biggest star that's ever mentioned every time, without exception, is Tojo Yamamoto. And to know that this is a guy who's helped train you, and he's your dad's former tag team partner, and now you're going to go out and win the international tag titles from Sato and Tarzan Goto. And they actually do this title switch in multiple cities because this is before everything was on tape and pre-internet. You got to win the tag titles over and over and over with this guy.
4 times.
This has to feel like a little kid dream come true here in a weird way, not?
For me to reflect on it now versus back then. So back then, Conrad, I'm thinking to myself, oh boy. So now I'm in a tag situation, and look, Tojo was limited, which was fine, but how's this? I'm immediately trying to armchair quarterback this thing and go, now how's this all going to work out? And they're saying, just let it develop. Tarzan Goto, young boy from Japan, Akio Sato. I didn't know either one of these guys, but they come in and Tarzan Goto didn't speak a lick of English. None. Sato did. And he was excited about it. And just kind of what they I don't want to say lay out, but just kind of here's how we're going to go about this. And we're going to switch the titles. I'm like, Conrad, you said it, like, are you kidding me? We're winning actually, or I'm going to get to be on the winning team. Yeah. It's I can't say a dream come true because I never really dreamed of that, but it's like, are you kidding me that, I'm that young in the business and I'm a tag champ with Tojo.
Surreal. It's awesome. Let's talk about what's next here. There's going to be a story, as there always is. Tojo eventually turns heel and walks out on you in the middle of a tag match. And Lance Russell interviews Pat Tanaka and Jeff Jarrett. Lance is going to say that this should have been Jarrett's best day of his life. He had just won the tag titles with Tojo, but Tojo walks out on him. And you're able to get a roll up and secure the pin after Tojo tags him back in. And then Jarrett's trying to get in touch with Tojo, hasn't been able to get a hold of him. You might be a champion, but you don't have your partner by your side. And Tanaka chimes in and says that Jarrett needs to go after Tojo and not be a nice guy. And Tanaka's going to start appearing in your corners. And Tojo becomes the manager of Sato and Goto, and the titles are now held up. So talk to me about this evolution of your and Tojo's on-screen relationship and the way the breakup and the split, all that came to be.
It was, again, simple storytelling that the young kid is, I don't want to say carrying the load, but kind of outshining the veteran, the old timer, if you will. The reality was Tojo's best days in the ring were long gone. It was going to be short-lived anyway, but in a lot of ways, it was the setup, and Tojo was going to be the heel manager of Akio Sato and Tarzan Goto. And it was just kind of that natural mentor-student story that works if you have patience and kind of episodically tell that story. And then obviously I'm left without a partner. Pat Tanaka, young guy in the territory, he could work his ass off. He was going to be a perfect partner, two young guys. And I'm telling you, Conrad, as we're about to get into the next, one time, Conrad, I timed this. I want to say the next 16 or 18 weeks, I wrestled in a tag, a 6-man, or singles with Akio Sato and Tarzan Goto every night. That was truly my college education. When I got done with this program, I didn't think it then, but I thought when I go back on it, I think maybe not college, maybe that was my high school education, but I had advanced considerably. I remember one night my dad, after, I don't know, maybe a month or two working with those guys, he said, "Hey, I got a call and they said you guys had the best match on the card or something." He said, I'm looking forward to seeing your match on Saturday. And we went out and had, one of our matches and, get to the back. And I can remember Pat saying, "I told you, Jerry." And I'm like, "Well, what'd you tell him?" And they had a conversation before the match. Anyway, I owe so much to that time frame because I learned how to sell as a babyface with the manager, which you kind of have to understand the ebb and flow of a babyface. You got to put yourself in the right position so the heels keep the heat and the referee doesn't get all the heat. That's a nuance that so many babyfaces in a tag match, they literally think they're doing the right thing and they're burying the heels and putting all the heat on the referee, which is so counterproductive. And then also kind of setting up the hot tag and knowing when to go and listening and all that. It was such a, I'll call it almost a growth spurt in my training. And that's only came from 6-7 nights a week for 4 or 5 months.
They did an interview with you in the big Tennessean newspaper, which is the big Nashville paper in 1986. This would come out July 13th. And listen, I know these days newspapers are not nearly as highly regarded, but you got to appreciate in 1986, we didn't have 24-hour cable news in every home. And we certainly didn't all have the internet and nobody had an iPhone in their pocket. So a lot of people got their news and information from the newspaper. So it's a big deal to have this big article about you. And it's written very much in the era of kayfabe, where they're talking about the former Good Pasture high school basketball player star is making a name and developing a following for himself in the glitzy slam bam world of pro wrestling. And they get some quotes from you. And I just love it because it's all in character. I've won the majority of my matches, but it's pretty tough. Some of the guys I wrestle have 10 or 15 years experience on me and weigh 20 to 30 pounds more than I do. One guy I wrestled weighed 100 pounds more than me. You've got to keep a cool head and not let your temper get away, or you can get hurt. So listen, I know you're protecting the business and this is all done, very much in character and keeping kayfabe and all that jazz. But in this era, all the newspaper articles, for the most part, unless it was Phil Mushnick, were writing like this. Do you think the reporter was wink, wink in on it? Or did he really believe it? Do you think? I mean, there's no chance he really believed it, right?
See, you have to kind of, it is impossible. Even Conrad, and you don't do it for a living, but you spend a lot of time talking nostalgia and Shivani and JR, Bruce, all of us, just the 80s were just a completely different time, but he had to have kind of gone along with it.
Yes.
But Conrad, do you know what I remember almost during this time frame? Because again, to kind of set this up now, the Tennessean, this paper, yes, massive circulation for the city. I mean, it was the number one newspaper. So having the opportunity, they came out to the fairgrounds to interview me. But before that, I had started making the spot shows, and you go to Hohenwald, Tennessee, or any small little town, again, one of those spot shows. And, when tickets would go on sale, I would do that and then drive to the next. Anyway, I'd get into those towns and I would talk to the newspaper reporters. And my grandmother, again, the little bits of words of wisdom that she gave me back then, they resonate so much because, again, it's business minded, it's selling tickets, it's thinking through the lens of how do we get folks to be excited about the show. We're not selling a match with all this, but man, Conrad, and I know I've shared this with you, but she's like, here's my words of advice. Obviously it was, you got to speak kayfabe. You can't expose the business no matter what. She kind of gave me some pointers on that. And she's like, do not discuss religion or politics under any circumstance. Like do not even open your mouth. And the wrestling, the word fake. So don't discuss wrestling, religion, or politics, and think about why they want to come to the show, just the tidbits. So here comes this newspaper reporter in the banner, and he's going down this road. And Conrad, when you just quoted back, yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, bless their heart.
Listen, he knows where it's going, right? So he goes, professional wrestling holds a unique stature in America today. You can't question its popularity with the fans. You can't question its popularity on television. But there are those who question its right to the word sport, looking upon wrestling as merely an exciting form of entertainment. Like most of the grapplers, Jarrett is quick to defend against wrestling's tarnished reputation. Quote, there's more showmanship in wrestling than football or basketball, but it's definitely a sport. Nobody without athletic ability is going to last long. None of it is pre-planned. It's all happening right there in the ring.
How about that, Connie?
Hey, you're doing a good job
of towing the line.
We should mention you're going to be working tag matches, teaming up with Tanaka to take on Sato and Goto, all about these international tag titles. You team with Paul Diamond on the July 12th television show, defeating Miami Vice, which is Jerry Bryant and Lou Winston. And you guys are attacked by Sato and Goto afterwards. Any fun stories of hanging out with Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka?
At one time, so the four of us in a car, and I said, me, Paul Diamond, Billy Travis, and Pat Tanaka, all young guys. I was the youngest, bought me a nice Jetta bumper to bumper warranty. We drove the wheels off that thing, the four of us, but that was, I guess the first car that I was in that you get to talk the business of wrestling, and that is what worked and didn't work. And a lot of times, maybe me and Pat were in the same match, but we would all be in different parts on the card. And so we all would, hash and rehash. Like in my, later, me and Kevin Nash and Kevin, I don't want to say a master, I'm trying to think of the right word, but analyzing what worked and did work. And Scott Hall, that's almost, the post-mortem of a match. If you want to get kind of official, that's how you really learned. And you go, okay, that didn't work tonight. That did work tonight. Tomorrow night, let's try this, man. So that kind of stuff that the four of us talked about. And look, I did tried to do as much listening as possible because Billy was seasoned. Pat Tanaka was damn sure seasoned. Paul Diamond was not a rookie. So those three guys, I got to learn so much just being in the car and listening. Man, a lot of fun.
The July 19th TV show, we see Lance Russell talk a lot about this feud that you've got going on. And we even hear from Jerry Jarrett. It's a pre-tape promo where he's explaining that Jeff asked him, "Hey man, what's happening with Tojo?" And Jerry says he's tried to get a hold of Tojo, but each time he's hung up the phone. And Jerry says he thinks he's figured it out. Tojo's older and still wrestles, but Jerry's retired. And he thinks that Tojo resents that Jeff is now entering the promotion. And Jerry says he doesn't plan on getting involved in any of your matches, but Lance says that your dad is going to be in your corner. Later in this show, during the Nightmares match with Sato and Goto, it ends when the studio doors burst open to find Fire and Flame, the Southern Tag Champs, attacking Jeff Jarrett in the parking lot. You're going to take a beating, get slammed into a trailer, the trailer that hauls the ring. Eventually the Nightmares make the save. Pretty classic angle here. And then Tojo, Sato, and Goto are all interviewed by Lance Russell. And Tojo says, whatever happened outside isn't any of our business. And he doesn't trust Jerry Jarrett and says that as of today, their friendship is no more. And next time he sees Jerry, he's going to pull some blood from Jerry's head. Tojo said he never turned his back on Jeff. And Goto chimes in and says the whole family is going to be needed at ringside. So now we've got, just like that old sign you guys used to have hanging up in Memphis, a personal issue. What do you remember of your first parking lot beatdown?
Hurt. What you're doing out there. It's not like we walked through it and rehearsed it and thought through it and bump pads and all that. Just not knowing how to deal with things. And look, Fire and Flame, that's Don Bass and Roger. Just, Conrad, these guys are probably late 30s, early 40s. They're men. They could throw me around like a damn rag doll. Look at that shot. Folks that are just listening, we're showing a picture of just those are two big old dudes just
throwing around a young man.
Yes. But again, Memphis TV is, that's where we did the heat angles. You got to build the heat to get them to come out and pay to see the baby faces get their victory. But again, the setup, but it all goes back on the basis of Jerry Jarrett and Tojo Yamamoto's legendary, as you refer to, Huntsville, their tag team. They were brothers, if you will, and people were emotionally invested in them as a tag team. And now here they are, and one guy's become a promoter, and now Tojo switched heel, and he's representing, a really, really good tag team. So personal issues, draw money.
Through the month of August, we've got a bunch of matches around the loop with kendo stick lumberjack matches.
Whew.
This is 1986. This is 9 years before we see the Sandman make this a popular thing in ECW. And you're doing lumberjack kendo sticks. Woo. What do you remember of these?
Marcus, if you will, I know it's online. We did an angle on TV with me and Tojo and these guys, Conrad, on Memphis TV, and they took my hands and tied them together and threw the rope. And I'm outside the ring. My feet are touching the ground, and threw the rope up over the top rope, and one of them got, and then they wore me out with the kendo stick. And, the kendo stick obviously makes noise and everything that visually goes with it, and it leaves marks, and it hurts, but it doesn't, there's no long-term damage, maybe some trauma, but I mean, that was my first real introductory. I'll call it. It wasn't. I don't call it hardcore, Conrad, because we'll get there. But I mean, it was a violent angle that Tojo and we Yellow Pain, and we got into it because he was going to call me a coward, and I snuck out, and I'm the one who poured the yellow paint on Tojo, and there's a visual. Wow, we do have it. That Conrad, this was the setup, and they beat the hell out of me. It was a good setup. It was an angle that we made money off of for the next, I don't know, 6-8 weeks, however long this angle ran with the kendo sticks.
The kendo sticks are just something else. August 2nd, we got Joey Jarrett in here talking about the kendo stick lumberjack matches. And he says the past few weeks he was going to help Jeff and Tanaka win the tag titles, but he clearly hasn't helped enough. He's not going to promise the tag titles will change hands. He talks about how him and Tojo will have a kendo stick, and it's legal as long as they don't get in the ring to use it. And Jerry promises to give Tojo a beating, and he'll live up to it. Tojo responds to those people or those comments by saying Jerry always listens to the wrong people. I like the idea that your dad, being one of the top stars in the history of this area, is teasing, I'm in, I'm not in. I'm in, I'm not in. That keeps this story going back and forth and stretches it out, which is what we're trying to do if we're running the same towns week in, week out. And then Jeff and Tanaka win the tag titles in every city. Once again, Memphis, Evansville, all this, they're winning it around the loop again. And then we do TV all the way in September. Jerry Lawler sits down with Jeff Jarrett and Pat Tanaka and asks them what they like most about wrestling. And Jarrett says that wrestling's a lot of fun and they spend some time working out and hanging out with girls. Hope Teeny wasn't listening. And there's footage of the duo shopping as if they're best friends. And Tanaka says they enjoy meeting all the fans. This today, of course, would be a little cheesy, but back then, this is kind of what you did. But them filming a vignette of you guys shopping, this is like white meat babyface stuff.
100%. And just to give a little bit, that interview that me and Pat did was on the Jerry Lawler show. So our 90-minute Memphis wrestling show on Saturday mornings was, studio wrestling. The 30-minute show or hour that Lawler had, called the Jerry Lawler show, had all kinds of different things, and he would have local guests come on or whatever it is, but he would have a wrestling segment. He had us on there that week, and he filmed it either before or after the studio show, the live studio show, and that was something that kind of, in modern day, what we would call it is character development. That was how Jerry Lawler would help develop characters on that airtime. Again, that's how big a star. Lawler, the wrestling star, had his own talk show on the same NBC station, got monster ratings on Sunday morning, and it was just called the Jerry Lawler Show with zero wrestling. It was just a set, like a little midday show that is on local TV. So the megastar of Lawler talking to two guys, he knew how to sell. And again, I think that a lot of things go under the radar, but before it was called character development, and I know this was done around done around the country, but Jerry Jarrett and Jerry Lawler were, deep into character development. They really had a mind for it.
Well, something big is going to happen. You're going to get new gear. No longer are you wrestling in your damn underwear. Now you got long purple pants, and you're going to be wearing these when you and Tanaka take on Memphis Vice, which is Jerry Bryant and Lou Winston. Eventually, Sato, Goto, and Tojo come out, and business picks up. Tojo gets in the ring, and he starts beating on you with the kendo stick. He whacks Tanaka over the head. Tanaka's bleeding, and now you're bleeding too. This is your first time bleeding in wrestling, no?
No. The very first angle when, Dundee beat me up, then I want to say it was the first Conrad. I refereed the match off that "Don't Quit" promo.
Yeah.
I think I refereed the tag of the 6-man, and the finish out of that was Dundee. Dundee's the first one. He's the one who did the honors. Dundee cracked my cherry, so to speak. He did that. I believe, though, Conrad, this is the first time that I did it on TV. I believe.
This is the first time you did it yourself.
I think so. Maybe. I don't know if I did it around the loops a couple of times working with Tojo. I'm not sure.
I know now that we pull the curtain all the way back and that everybody knows. But when you were quote unquote getting color as a referee and Dundee was doing it for you, did you know before that moment how it was done?
For the most part.
The idea is people still, to this day, when I just meet casual fans, as I was talking about before, whenever they tell me about, oh, I saw Tojo Yamamoto at the Coliseum. I just had this conversation 3 weeks ago. A lady goes, man, they used to love using blood capsules, didn't they? And I didn't have the heart to tell her there's no such thing, because the reality is, to a non-fan, I don't want to talk about self-mutilation and all that other stuff. So It's just like, yeah, man, it was crazy. It's like a horror movie. And it's just easier to just let it go rather than have this whole side conversation. But I'm saying all that to say that narrative was out there in a big way in this era. It's ketchup. It's a blood capsule. It's food coloring, blah, blah, blah. You grew up around it, but it was still something where they're probably not. And that's one of the last things that guys are uncomfortable talking about like that. They don't want to share that. So when did you find out, as in that referee angle? All right, so here's what we're going to do to your head today.
I'm sure that I found out, hey, we're going to that day. I mean, I was told that was happening that day, and it was like, okay, thank God I don't have to do it because I don't know what I'm doing.
So now here, when you're doing it on TV and you think this is the first time, are you making it yourself, or does a veteran make it for you and show you where to hide it and all that?
By this time, 4 or 5 months in, I was doing it myself. That was kind of a lesson early. Eddie Marlin, Jerry Jarrett, I'm not sure which one, but I can just they were very, very particular about handling that yourself. The Senate, super clean. There was just kind of I'll say a mandate that came from above directly to me about being clean, keep it clean, be very careful. The horror stories of staff and infections and how dangerous it can be. And, you don't want to get your forehead infected because your eye is inches away and bad things can go wrong. So if for years, Conrad, I kept a little bottle of rubbing alcohol and always Neosporin, always.
So who's the person who sits down and says, Jeff, here's how you make one, with the tape and the scissors and the whole deal?
I'm pretty sure I watched Bill.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say, or I'm sure Mole Man had some kind of instruction on it, but there was a running joke. I can remember Dundee saying, why the hell are you going to talk to him about it? I hadn't seen him get color in 10 years. Right. One of those running jokes.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they were the heavy influence on it.
Where did you hide yours back in Purple Pants days?
Wrist.
Okay.
Always.
Any nervousness about fumbling it, or, cause this is a lot of pressure. You're on TV, right?
Yeah. You're always a little bit concerned, but it's one of those, kind of reps and all that. And that's where, in this day and age, and God, Conrad, just the thoughts that come through my head about the early days of being schooled, that you got to get your opponents in on the timing of this.
Yes.
You gotta let the cameraman in on this. You got to let the referee in on this if need be to pick up the evidence. We are producing a story.
Well, and here's the thing, you're doing this when you don't normally talk about everything. So I just want to add context to that, where very much back then you guys were calling it in the ring. These days, all right, you do this, then I'll do that. Not being critical, just saying it's the evolution of the business.
Yeah.
But back then it wasn't all hands on deck effort, because to your point, we have to have some sort of violent moment or blow or strike happen. So we got to know when that's going to happen so you can be ready. But at the same time, the cameraman has to be ready to not shoot you. And we also need usually some other distraction to get everybody else looking over here so you can do your business and not expose it. And at the same time, we got to pass the evidence to the referee so you don't look like a goof. You can start selling. So there's a lot of things that have to happen, and it might be the only, besides the finish, the only quote unquote planned thing in the course of a whole segment, right?
Bingo. Well said. Just the timing of it. And it's because it's amazing to me how the simplistic things sometimes get lost, but it destroys being wrapped up in the moment, destroys it.
Well, your dad comes in the ring and cleans house to make the save until Tojo whacks him with the kendo stick. And then Jerry Lawler runs out to make the save. Tojo gets nailed with a kendo stick here. And now the tag title feud continues. It's Sato and Tarzan Goto winning the next set of matches with 2 referees. The following week, they have a mystery referee.
Hada. I say all that. I'm sorry, Conrad. A little sidebar. No matter how hard I could hit Tojo, I mean, swinging as hard as I possibly could, no matter what, his knee-jerk reaction, harder. There was never no silence or good, or it was always harder. And then when you get to the back, Tojo, that's about as hard as I can hit you. Not good enough. And then keep moving. I'm just like, I mean, that was.
Let's show the mystery referee again. Guys, if you're not watching on YouTube, you got to. This is our Midnight Rider angle, if you will. But it's Jerry Jarrett as the mystery referee, but he's wearing a hood. This is pretty fun. I love this stuff. This is also the angle where we get the whole yellow paint. Tojo's going to threaten to paint Jeff Jarrett's back yellow because he's a coward. Says he's going to whip Jerry with a belt and paint his back as well. And
yellow coward.
This is just really great stuff. Big brawls. The paint can comes out. A pretty memorable angle, this yellow paint can. Golly, I just love this stuff. It's old school. It gets me going. And I know for you, it gets your dick real hard. And so does Blue Chew. Ladies and gentlemen, this show is sponsored by Blue Chew. You've heard us talk about it for years here on the program. If you haven't tried it yet, why not? Let me give you a pro tip. They keep advertising here on the show because it really works. It's going to get your ding dong so hard, even a cat couldn't scratch it, y'all. You see, Blue Chew is a unique online service, delivers the same active ingredient as Viagra and Cialis, but in chewable form and at a fraction of the cost. You don't want that thing to explode like a magic guitar. You need stiff shots like a kendo stick, Tojo style. Take them anytime, day or night. So plan ahead or be ready whenever an opportunity arises. And somebody in the room will be yelling, "Hotta, hotta, hotta." Sign up at BlueChew.com. Consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once you're approved, you receive your prescription within days. The best part, it's all done online. So no visits to the doctor's office, no awkward conversations, and no waiting in line at the pharmacy. Blue Chew's tablets are made in the USA. They prepare and ship directly to your door. It's all in a discreet package. So if you could benefit from extra confidence when it's time to perform, chew it and do it. Let's have some better sex. And then nobody will be yelling, "Hotta, hotta." They'll be getting it as hard as they need to, because we got a special deal for you right now. Try Blue Chew free when you use our promo code MyWorld at checkout. Just pay $5 shipping. That's BlueChew.com. The promo code is MyWorld to receive your first month free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we want to thank Blue Chew for sponsoring this podcast and Tojo for helping me with the transition. Hotta, hotta. How fun is that spot, man? Especially with Tojo yelling hotta, hotta in the background. Come on.
I had no idea, man. You are an opportunist marketing.
Hotta, hotta.
But did you ever meet Tojo?
And I did not.
Never. Okay. So the old school fans that kind of knew Tojo will definitely, I mean, it's just, bless his heart. Did you ever meet Gypsy Joe?
I did not, but I saw New Jack and him on that tape. Woo.
Oh, Lord. Gypsy was another one. Kid. Hotta. Yep. I can't swing a chair any harder. It's hurting my hands. Okay. Then I'm going to hit you one time and we'll find out if you can swing it harder. You got it, Jipper. I'll swing it.
Yeah. Wide open. Here we go.
I'm coming for the, yes. Oh man.
This led to some matches with Jerry Jarrett versus Tojo. Jerry's even going to quote unquote break Tojo's arm to keep the feud going even longer. The next gimmick match to set up is a strap on a pole. It's Sato and Goto versus Jeff and his father, Jerry. And this is the first time that the Jarretts are going to team up in the ring. And you would say on TV on September 27th that you've always dreamed of teaming with your dad. Man, this is good stuff. I mean, yes, something on a pole is Memphis. And I know a lot of people LOL at stuff on a pole. I get that. But teaming with your dad, this is awesome stuff.
And you know, the thing about putting stuff on a pole, and look, all the criticism that is, modern day, it's all appropriate in a lot of ways, because from a creative episodic storyline, you have to give, okay, why are we putting a strap on the pole? Well, here's the reality is on Memphis TV, Tojo and Tarzan whipped the hell out of this guy over and over with the strap. So as a promotion, we don't want to just have two guys getting in the ring, beating the hell out of each other's straps. We'll make a strap legal, and it'll be at the end of the match, because the winner of the match is one who gets the strap. And if you can do something with that strap until that heel or baby face has no more or whatever it is, I hate to say it, but it gives, as the words of Dutch Mantel, if you give it some wrestling logic, most of the time you go, okay, I get it. That's why this thing is on the pole. If you just throw it up there and throw Judy Bagwell up there, well, okay, that's the Viagra and Beetlejuice and Judy Bagwell on a pole. That's where it's like becomes LOL. But for the most part, I think in Memphis, we tried to give a little logic to it. But the strap on a pole, I mean, that was those strap matches and watching my old man whip Tojo and just knowing their relationship. And, Tojo in my early years, the number one thing I thought about Tojo is, oh man, he's bringing his cooking, because he could cook Japanese style. Oh, it's the best teriyaki sauce. And that's how, family friends. Yeah. So, as the years roll along and now my old man's whipping his ass and Tojo's selling and hi, Jerry.
It's hilarious stuff. And by the way, I want to give you guys some kudos. I think a lot of people sort of gloss over the history of hardcore wrestling. It starts in Memphis. If you're not sure, we're talking about bleeding on TV. We're talking about chair shots. We're talking about kendo sticks. And then we see Eddie Marlin come out nailing people with trash cans. They're going to put Paul Diamond's leg over a steel chair. Sato's going to splash it off the top. This is Pillmanizing, 10 years before it was happening on WWF TV. Just great stuff. And we keep turning the volume up. And eventually you're going to team with your dad and Tommy Rich. Tommy Rich, of course, is not too far removed from being an NWA world champion and super over here in the South. And then we do hospital elimination matches, similar to a Survivor Series match, but this way you're only eliminated when you get busted open. So I know that everybody, myself included, used to think, well, hardcore wrestling, that's ECW. Well, I don't know about that. This is 10 years before. And we're doing a mix of handicap, 8-man and 10-man tags. And go ahead.
I don't know, and you may not even be worth mentioning, but we called it a hospital elimination match.
Yeah.
As opposed to First Blood.
Right.
So it could go in newspaper. You could talk about it. It's a little bit softer on Saturday morning. You're saying, although we're going to come beat your ass, but the promotion didn't call it First Blood. We called it a hospital. It's just wordsmithing.
The hospital elimination match that happens, the big one, is a 10-man tag at Mid-South Coliseum, October 20th. Dirty Rhodes teaming with Don Bass, Tojo Yamamoto, Sato, and Goto taking on Austin Idol, Tommy Rich, Jerry Lawler, Jeff, and Jerry Jarrett. It's a hospital elimination match. And again, you're only eliminated when you bleed. We got 10 dudes here. That means 9 are guaranteed to bleed.
And Conrad, another thing is Tommy Rich He's born and raised here in Hendersonville, same town. When he wanted to become a wrestler, a family friend, and all this, my dad literally trained him how to lock up in his basement, kind of the same basement where Hulk was shot, all that kind of stuff. And then Tommy went off, and Jim Barnett, and a mega star, and he had moved, and he hadn't been back in Hendersonville as far as living in years. So his home base was Atlanta. So for us to get dates on him, it was a big deal. But for me as a kid who knew Tommy as the TBS rock star, who, oh, wait a minute, my dad trained. Oh my God, this guy's coming in. And then of course, Austin Idol, we've talked for, on this podcast several times. I mean, in the Memphis territory, a mega star. So for young Jeff Jarrett to be with his dad and 3 of those guys, come on, dude. When I read the research, Conrad, I had kind of forgot about this.
Yes.
Big stuff for me. Huge stuff for me.
I love that you're going to get some new tag team partners now for your continuing feud with Sato and Goto, Billy Joe Travis in Evansville, Austin Idol in Memphis. We've talked a little bit about Billy Joe Travis before. You've talked a little bit about Austin Idol and how he would have fallings out with the 2 Jerrys, but Austin Idol was a big old star. If you're not sure, just ask him. But you're teaming with him again, man, between rubbing shoulders with a former NWA champ and the guy fresh off WWF TV and Jerry Lawler and now Austin Idol. You're checking all the boxes here. You know it?
It's huge. Tommy was big. Idol was huge. Obviously Lawler, just kind of being in this, the groove of things. And look, I knew that they viewed it as, all right, we're getting the heat on Jeff. He's selling, and then we'll break it down into it. So the role that I got to play, invaluable for my career, totally invaluable. Know your role in all of this. Huge for me. Huge.
Next up, you get to, and this is pretty fun, man. You're going to get a new tag team partner in Paul Diamond. It's official, and you guys win the tag straps together. And you're supposed to be defending against Rough and Ready, but the latter are paid off by the Sheep Herders. And it's going to be a bloody brawl. 4 guys bleeding right away. These Memphis bloodbaths are something else. It's Jonathan Boyd and Rip Morgan. And once again here, November 8th, just bloodbath everywhere. Any pushback from your friends, family, teenie, anybody about, son, every time I turn on TV, you're bleeding again?
Well, not really pushback, because look, they knew it wasn't my call. I'm talking about internally in the family, Conrad. But I remember as a young kid, I'm just even learning really about working out and trying to put on size. And I'm going to the gym, and I've got a Band-Aid on my forehead, and I've got this thing tied down, and not new skin, Neosporin and all that. And you do a good set, and you come up, and you can just feel that hot blood on your forehead. And you go, oh my God, got to go to the gym, got to go to the bathroom. Those little things, just, the fun year of a rookie year, not knowing what the hell you're doing. But yeah, the Sheep Herders, again, I was a huge fan of the Fabulous Ones versus the Sheep Herders. Did monster box office attraction. I mean, and that was Luke Williams and Jonathan Boyd. Luke and Butch, and then Luke and Jonathan. Anyway, so now Jonathan brought back another partner. Again, a man's man that threw my ass around the ring, Rip Morgan. But they weren't in for too long, I don't think. But again, they were over, and Jonathan could talk his ass off and talk him in the building.
It's so fun to think about how quick this is all happening for you. Eventually, Tojo's going to throw salt in Paul Diamond's eyes after a distraction from the Sheep Herders. Sato's going to get the pin. Him and Goto are now the tag champs again. And you're going to move on and set your sights for the Southern Tag Team titles. You defeat the Sheep Herders to win those belts on the 17th at Mid-South Coliseum. A week later, you beat them again. And this is a loser leaves deal.
They had to go. Again,
it's the territory era. They're out of here. The November 29th, 1986 show, years before the WWF started doing them, we're setting up casket matches. They're known as the New Zealand Death Box match. I guess we can't call it a cow. I don't know. But Jonathan Boyd of the Sheepherders is still here and comes out, and he has a casket with him. And Boyd says he's outsmarting everybody. And he thinks he may have underestimated Jeff Jarrett. And now he's out here eating his words. And he wonders if Jeff is even actually really a man. So now we're going to have this match. And the way you win is by putting your opponent in a death box. Of course, I think the first casket match was way back when with Dusty Rhodes. But still, you want to talk about the quote unquote box of gimmicks. You're pulling them all out here in Memphis, are you not?
Year one for me, but yes. And Jonathan, for whatever reason, I think Rip had to go back home because of his girlfriend or wife or some type of situation. But Jonathan wanted to stay. And again, Jonathan's a hell of a talker. And I just remember him coming to me, and I don't think he used the words pitch, but he essentially was saying, hey, I've got this idea. I'm going to run by them, because this was kind of his creative in a sense. And you do know what this death box match is, right? It's not just being put in a coffin or a death box.
Well, here's how the volume gets turned up. He says, you won't be in there by yourself either. And you're out there, and he flips open the casket and pulls out a python, puts it on you. Eddie Marlin comes out trying to defend you. Eventually you get free of the snake. And the only way Marlin eventually leaves is when Boyd says, the snake bites, and then away he goes. But the idea is we're going to put you in a casket with a snake in there. This is crazy stuff, dude.
I mean, yes. Let me ask you, no matter how you slice it and dice it, especially in 86, you can say, that first match, they were green. That was phony. That second match, oh man, I saw the referee talking. That third match, now Lawler's match is always real. But now all of a sudden, this Boyd and Jarrett, hell, I don't care if it's real or not. I ain't getting in that casket with a snake. That's real.
Right.
The emotional connection, everybody can relate to being put in a box with a snake.
Yes, they can. Yes, they can. I just cannot believe, the creativity that you guys have put up. And it's no wonder that this show got such great ratings. Like, this would have been a good show in 96, much less 86. Let's talk about Memphis TV. We're here in December. We're rounding out your first year here. It's December 13th. You and Billy are going to be interviewed by Lance Russell, and you guys are talking about not backing down from any challenge. And you have a match coming up with the Rock and Roll RPMs, which is Mike Davis and Tommy Lane. And the AWA Tag Team Championships are, of course, on the line. Talk to me a minute before we move on. You in your first year have been primarily a tag team wrestler. Is this simply to get you more reps and just get you more comfortable, or is it to help instill more credibility with the fan base? Because you are this younger, maybe smaller, more inexperienced in storyline, blah, 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 blah. What's the thinking behind, let's make him a tag team guy? Cause you've had every tag team partner under the sun your first year.
Look, and that's really a Jerry Lawler specific question. But as I kind of look back on it and trying to recall the different stories of the position, Lawler was the top babyface by far. And they kind of had a blueprint in a lot of ways, is that they were big on tag team drawing money. It was a mindset. I know, the chairman, WWE, Vince, was never a big fan of tag team and managers, and it's more expensive to transport, a group and all that. But my father he thought as he really believed in, not so much, I'll call it a bookend tag team like the Road Warriors, no disrespect to any of that, but he liked putting together 4 different personalities. And if you had a manager, a 5th, that you can kind of create more drama, more intrigue, double crossing, and just more personalities involved. He believed in that. As far as my in-ring ability, without question, Conrad, that's the best way to learn. You're not in there with just one guy that's help teaching you. You're in there with 3 guys, maybe 4 with the manager. And when I look at the evolution of my partners, Pat Tanaka, fantastic bump taker, the real basics. Akio Sato taught me transitions and bump taking and how to work a tag match, not 2 singles. That may go over some folks' heads, but I see a lot of guys today basically have a match where it's really 2 single matches just kind of put together. Having a real tag match and every transition means something, blah, 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 blah. I know I sound like the old timer there, but there is an art to working a tag match. But when I went from essentially Pat Tanaka for several months and then Billy Travis is the one, and he's one of those guys that he was his own worst enemy, should have been a much bigger star than he ever was. But you talk about a selling babyface. He could sell, he could come back, he could heel and babyface, but a super rounded worker. But we shot this angle with the rock and roll RPMs. To me, it's the first angle that I was in that we specifically saw a box office attraction in this match. Other times, whether it was Tommy Rich or Jerry Lawler, or Austin Idol, or my partners, or the heels had so much heat that Lawler and others would draw money, or whatever it was. We shot this angle, and it did really, really good business in every spot show we did. It just clicked. And the rock and roll RPMs were the right heels, and Billy was the right lead babyface, and I was the up-and-comer that had enough matches under my belts where the people began to believe in me, but Billy was really the glue of the whole angle. But I think to circle back to your question, Conrad, putting me in a tag put me in the best position to draw money, if that makes sense.
I love it. The RPMs are going to win the belts, by the way. They do wind up beating you to close the year out. Davis is going to deck Travis with a chain from his trunks while the ref is putting you out of the ring. So that serves as a distraction. So they pick up the win. And the last few weeks of December here, your rookie year, you and Billy Joe are going to challenge the RPMs for the titles. You're unsuccessful each time, but you ended up being announced as Rookie of the Year by the AWA. Got to be a pretty big honor, man. Rookie of the Year. Come on now.
Storyline, I guess. But the evolution of, I got blessed, lucky, all the above, just kind of how the story's laid out, because I think strategically he being Jerry, or both Jerrys, they kept me with a partner, and then I moved on, kept me with a partner and moved on. And that, I think that in a lot of ways highlighted the rookie year, if you will, the freshness of it, that he just keeps evolving. And look, it's an understatement. Lance Russell, the old line, that kid, Jeff Jarrett, he gets just a little bit better every week. Okay. If you say that 20 weeks in a row, the people believe it, whether it's true or not.
By the way, the other people who started wrestling in 86, John Laurinaitis, Norman Smiley, Brian Adams, Doug Gilbert, the Warlord, Paul Heyman, Scott Steiner, Luna Vachon, Charles Robinson, Hiroshi Haas, easy for me to say, Kensuke Sasaki, Owen Hart, Aja Kong, Ron Simmons, and Road Dogg. So big year for wrestling personalities, and somehow maybe all the storyline, maybe the political stroke. I don't know. You win. Listen, we talked about how you got in. We never really talked about what your goal was when you first thought, man, I'm going to venture off into this crazy wrestling world. Did you have aspirations? One day I'd like to. I know you wanted to get some picture money and maybe get some sugar. But
Conrad, up until about Christmas of this year, I still had in my mind, I'm going back to school.
I got you.
Silly me, but I really did. Okay, I'm going to start back, and no, I'm going to take this semester off. It's kind of word to your wise. That procrastination will get you. Only thing that creates change is massive radical action. And I had it in my mind, my mother played a part in that, and me too. And I was a decent student, good student, that I'm like, yeah, I'm going to get my degree. And I literally, so talking about goals of year one, I didn't have goals to win a belt. there was no goals. It was, I'm going to keep doing this. I enjoy it. Matter of fact, I love it, but I'm really going to get my education and then see where that takes me.
I know you've got a heart out, but I do want to do a few questions. Let's rapid fire some of these. Mike wants to know, do you remember an instance early on where you were tested by a veteran wrestler, be it in the ring or the locker room, due to being the promoter's son? If so, how did you respond?
I mean, Danny Fargo, I think I've said this, Danny Fargo, basically, shot me off, said, reverse it, go for a backdrop. And he came off and kicked me square between the nose. And he didn't apologize ever, but he's like, hey, it happens. I don't know if that was kind of taking liberties. Obviously I screwed up lots of times through the years, and specifically this early year. So I don't want to say take liberties, but I think for the most part, I think it was almost, it went without saying, we don't necessarily have to be a hard ass on Jeff. His old man's taking care of that for us.
Right.
I mean, I really, I would have never said that now, but as I look back on it, Phil Hickerson in the next couple of years, he would laugh and cut him about it, but he knew, and he knew my father from way back and different angles. And there was no chance in hell that his son, and I've heard this so many times, there's no way in hell I'm letting my son take a shortcut. Now, the whole basis of that was what he witnessed with Nick Goulas and George Goulas.
That's right.
Period. Without question. His set point was he witnessed it firsthand and understood the dynamics with talent, with George. I mean, George probably didn't ask for things he got. It just happened. Nick, kind of out of being a loving father that wanted to help his kid. So all that being said, not pointing fingers. And look, my father has had this conversation with me many times, I'll say, in my sobriety, that he specifically said, I went out of my way to make sure that there were no handouts, no easy streets, none of that, because I knew in the long run, all that really does is screw you up.
Yeah.
It's an incredible detriment to you. So he would say, here I said, did I kind of go overboard here and that? Maybe. But as I look at it today, and I just told that story on the Jericho podcast, when I look back on it, I had 88, had a, picture money was good, Conrad. Had me a 88 white Brougham Cadillac, got it, velvet seats. We had run up down the roads, my Volkswagen Jetta, we had Big Macs and all kind of stuff. So you just spill stuff everywhere. I'd gotten the new car and I said, okay, look, I'm at a position now. Let's just not eat in the car. We'll drink, but let's not eat hamburgers. We'll pull over and look, we'll just either go in or whatever it is. Well, Lawler got in the car one Wednesday night, and it was kind of a known thing, but he was new to the car. And I said, hey, would you mind maybe not eating? We'll pull over in here. And he goes, no, we're going through the drive-through. I said, do you mind if we kind of go, whatever the story was? Well, Lawler got pissed off, not just kind of, like furious, like, you little young punk, you're not going to let me eat in your car. And I know he's the owner. He's thinking, you wouldn't have this damn car if it wouldn't have been for me and your old man. That whole mentality. I was just trying to keep my new car clean. Well, next day, Lawler calls my old man, tells him the whole story. My old man calls me furious and said, when's your next day off? Dad, you know when I do. It's Sunday. Well, Sunday, you get up after Nashville. You work Saturday night. You drive down there and you apologize to him face to face. No phone call, no nothing. You walk in his house, stick out your arm, shake, and tell him you are apologize. You respect him, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, Conrad, you really drill that down into but that was his, there's several stories like that, going back to pulling the ring and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, as far as guys taking liberties, I think for the most part, that didn't happen too often because they knew Mole Man was
doing enough,
handling that side of things. Yeah.
Thomas wants to know, was there ever any point where you thought you never wanted to get in the ring again in your rookie year? Did you ever have an instance where you're like, man, forget this?
I thought we were going to touch on that. The guy that Tony Falk, he tag team Abdul Gaddafi.
Yes.
We did a heat spot on Memphis TV. I hit the ropes. Tony dropped down. I hit the ropes. Gaddafi gave me a knee in the back. And, a seasoned vet just kind of puts the knee up there and you run into it and you sell it. Gaddafi wasn't quite as green as I was, but green enough. He took his knee and he was going one way, as the saying, he was going east and I was going west. And I didn't find out till it had healed back, but the doctor came in. I had x-rays the next year when I had some kind of deal with my intestine. He goes, hey man, he said, did you know your ribs got broke? And I'm like, what? He goes, yeah. He said, they're pretty much healed up, but man, you had one that was really cracked because the scar tissue around that thing is calcified and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, didn't have a clue. Conrad, I couldn't breathe. It was hard for me to breathe for about 2 months.
Wow.
In this rookie year. And that was Gaddafi doing the knee in the back. And I remember Tony Falk asking me after the match, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, man, he knocked the breath out of you. And I said, I couldn't get my breath, but yeah. So during that kind of time, I can remember getting winded going, damn, this ain't easy, but it finally kind of healed up and went on about it.
Conversely, did you have an aha moment where you knew this is what I want to do forever?
Tried to do when's the Nick Bockwinkel match?
But because I don't know.
The RPM, that kind of program, we walked into Columbia, Tennessee, which is about, where it is, the exit between me and you, Columbia, Tennessee, Maury County.
I show you didn't wrestle him till 87, not 86.
Okay. That was a big moment for me that it was like, okay, Nick was really happy. Nick was a world champion, not from this territory. He could have said 15 different things about whatever. He was very complimentary. And I'm like, I really like doing this. I felt I don't say I held my own, but I did what was asking me.
It was validation that he didn't shit on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But the Rock and Roll RPM storyline, when it was Billy Travis, Jeff Jarrett against the Rock and Roll PMs, no Lawler, we were the main event and there was support, but that kind of run and kind of seeing how it drew in the loop and all that, that was one of those things that kind of was the first time that, hey, maybe I can stand on my own 2 feet, not as Lawler as my partner, not as my dad, it was Jeff and Billy and RPMs. That was the first angle where I could, no, let me say this. I didn't say it at first. I'm saying it today, but it was said to me, hey, you guys are drawing money. That was a real good aha moment for me.
Brad Stanton has a great question. Anybody say anything while you were looking at your first check?
It was bizarre. I was standing. No, I think I was seated. I was seated in Evansville, right by where the door goes up. I got that check out. And I dropped my head. And Jerry Lawler walked by and said, hey, kid, you can keep staring at that son of a bitch all you want, but it ain't going to grow. I said, okay, Mr. Lawler. I'm kidding.
I love you for that.
That's a good question.
That was a great question. Listen, we have a lot of fun on this show. By the way, as much fun as I'm having here, I want to let everybody know that in my real life, I'm helping people save money, and I'd be glad to help you too. I'm talking about savewithconrad.com. If you haven't checked it out already, why not? I want to give you a little pro tip, little heads up. Did you know you can get a cheaper monthly payment? We routinely help our podcast listeners save $500, $600, $700, even $800 a month at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. You don't need money out of your pocket. You see, we go down to a 580 score, and if you've got a 620 or better, man, it's smooth sailing with a program called FHA. That's right. It's a government-backed loan, and they make it very affordable for you to get out of that apartment and into a brand new house. And at the same time, pay off all of your debt. And I mean all of it. I'm talking credit card bills, second mortgages, car loans, whatever you got. And let me ask you about those credit cards. Are you just stuck making the minimum payment? What's your interest rate on that? Like 28%? You know you can do better. Not only that, but the interest you pay on your house, well, that's tax deductible. But the interest you pay on your credit cards, it's not. So if you could get a lower monthly payment and a greater tax deduction and finally pay off all that credit card debt, why wouldn't you? And how's this for starters? You can skip your next 2 payments. We're talking no payments until May. You can do all of this right now at savewithconrad.com. And I want to remind you, we've got an A+ rating with the the Better Business Bureau. And go check out our reviews. See what our actual customers are saying about us at conradreviews.com. There you'll see more than 1,000 5-star reviews. In fact, our average rating is 4.72 stars, which, if I do say so myself, pretty good. Seriously, you can save a boatload of cash. It costs nothing to look. And remember, we don't say no, we say not yet, but here's how. We want to be your mortgage advisor for life. So find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. NMLS number 65084, equal housing lender. And oh yeah, you can email me directly, conrad@savewithconrad.com, or you can chat with a live person right now, toll free at 888-425-0105. It's all savewithconrad.com. Next week, Jeff, we'll be back here talking about TNA and what a moment it is here in February of 2003. 20 years ago, Zach Gowen's going to debut. Steve Corino's coming in. We got Raven battling Sandman like it's 1996 again. And of course, we've got Vader teaming with Dusty Rhodes. I can't believe that's a thing, but it happened. And we'll talk about it next week here on the show. And in the meantime, to hold you over, you can join us over at adfreeshows.com. We got tons of bonus content, including bonus podcasts every single month with Jeff, but great other bonus content. Like we just sat down with Gary Juster, a name you hear a lot on our podcast when we talk about WCW and the NWA back in the day. But when's the last time you heard a Gary Juster interview? Probably never. Well, we talked to him about the AWA, the NWA, WCW, and ROH, all over at adfreeshows.com. We've also just launched a brand new thing called The Book, where we take the actual red books, the Booker's Book. This is Jim Crockett Jr.'s personal collection from the excellent penmanship of J.J. Dillon, from the genius booking mind of Dusty Rhodes, and we go through it day by day, show by show, gate by gate. We're lifting the velvet rope and welcoming you behind the curtain with wrestling royalty. Our great close personal friend David Crockett sits down with us episodically. January's already posted. February's going up right now at adfreeshows.com. And next month, it's when they buy the TBS slot back from Vince McMahon. Great, never before heard stories you're going to see exclusively at adfreeshows.com. By the way, if your business targets men that are 25 to 54 years old, there's no better place to advertise than right here on My World. You hear some of the same ads over and over and over. You want to know why? Because it works. You see, with our super targeted audience, there's very little waste. Go right now to advertisewithjarrett.com and find out more about advertising with My World. That's advertisewithjarrett.com. The best way to have interaction on the show is to tweet us. It's at MyWorldPod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. That's at MyWorldPod. You can also go ahead and like, subscribe, and turn on your notifications over on YouTube. If you're trying to learn about Memphis and you really want to enhance this experience, you've got to see Jeff on video and all of the accoutrement along with the story that you're hearing at myworldonyoutube.com. And of course, we've got brand new swag over at boxofgimmicks.com, including the now infamous Last Outlaw t-shirt. And ain't I still great? That's right. A little bit of tour on the back. Check it out. It's so much fun. It's boxofgimmicks.com. Jeff, today was fun. I didn't expect us to throw you a curveball and get you emotional right at the start of the show, but I hope we don't both have some upset text messages tomorrow, but we're doing our best to do right by everybody involved.
Amen, Conrad. But we almost went old school My World. Remember how every week you did get me. But
I didn't mean to this time. It just happened.
I know. But I enjoyed the heck out of this episode. A lot of fun. I mean, man, time flies. And Conrad, who would have thought hear me out, 1986.
Yep.
I'm getting stuck in a box with a
snake.
A little note. That's his boa. That was Jonathan Boyd.
Boyd.
He traveled with that freaking snake in his car.
No.
He'd keep it in his hotel room anyway. Who would have thought 1986? Fast forward 2023 February, and I'm going to kick Matt Caster's ass tomorrow night.
I can't wait.
He's cheering it on.
And the rumor is Sanjay Dutt is in the match.
I cannot wait.
I am looking forward to that.
You know my move that you like?
Yes.
You can't see that on audio, but
I need to see that tiptoe tomorrow night too. I want that Tennessee two-step tiptoe or whatever it is. I got to see it. It's going to be happening tomorrow night live on Dynamite, the greatest faction in wrestling. It ain't the damn Bullet Club. It ain't the Judgment Day. We don't have a name for it, but it's like the United Nations of Horsemen. All right. We got equal representation. We're the Global Horsemen. Hell, I just freestyled it. The Global Horsemen tomorrow night are going to just put a whooping on Granddaddy Ass. What kind of name is that? And get out of here with that scissor me garbage. Everybody's leaving with guitars. So there you go. Tune in tomorrow night to Dynamite, and don't forget to tune in next week right here on My World.
Peace.